Hello everybody, my name's James, and for the benefit of those listening on the audio, you're listening to my regular YouTube live stream, Ask James, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. And we're still in game week 23 apparently. I'd completely forgotten that Burnley and Watford existed tomorrow. 6 PM, we can all find out if our Watford players do absolutely sod all again. Right, let's get straight into the questions. Let's see who's in. Planting Seeds is first. Says, looking at wildcard 24 with 3 United, 3 Crystal Palace, 3 City, with a splash of Spurs and Everton. Triple captain Bruno or Ronaldo in 25, free hit for 26. 24 wildcard rolls nicely in the 27 for bench boost, and will move United players to Liverpool, Chelsea for 28. Right, you've got a plan, mate. Crack on with it, mate. There's many different ways to skin this. I don't think there's right or wrong with chip strategy. I'm not going to land too badly for game week 26 as it stands. I'm almost certainly going to triple captain Mo Salah. I'm not in a strong enough position without wildcarding to be in a position where I'm bench boosting, but I'm going to have a few good single game week players. Cancelo versus Tottenham, Jared Bowen at home to Newcastle, probably Leandro Trossard at home to Burnley, probably about 8 doublers. There's probably roundabouts where I'm going to be for that particular game week myself. Sam Holden says, you think Premier League salary cap on under 23s is possible? Would they stay with clubs, develop, earn first big contract? Or simply, would best young players disregard the Premier League if not universal in all leagues? It would probably make it more difficult to get the best overseas youngsters to the Premier League. Although admittedly Brexit is making that a lot tougher at the moment in terms of regards of rulings. It depends what country specifically and the type of clubs that they're coming for. In terms of domestic players, I don't suppose they would be rushing to go and sign for Bundesliga or La Liga clubs at 16, 17. But the problem is the very best players will make it into a first team at 17, 18 and have their first professional contracts. And I don't really see what difference it makes if the question's in reference to the player at Manchester United, for example. It's not going to make a blind bit of difference, I don't think, actually, unfortunately. As soon as they sign that first pro contract, they're going to earn salaries through the roof. Dan L says, hi James, hope you're well. My plan is Dennis to Edouard in 24. I already have King for the double game week and don't fancy double Watford. Then in 26, Fernandes, Trossard and Watkins to Salah, Cornet and Kane. Like your plan, Dan. Listen, plans are fine. It's all well and good to say, what do you think of this, for example? Dan's not putting it as a question. He's saying this is his plan. It's fine, mate. I mean, look, I've got King and Dennis. One of the reasons, genuinely, and I said this last week, that I did go for Dennis to add to Josh King was I thought Watford Palace was going to go into game week 25. That didn't happen. It's extended by a week. I'm probably not going to thump it around. The fact that Dominic Calvert-Lewin's potentially a bit of an injury doubt probably means that I'm going to move him on rather than one of the Watford players, probably for Ronaldo this week. I've got a stupid amount of money sitting in the bank. Still allows me to go and get Mo Salah back as well. Should I decide that I want to, I'm sure someone's going to ask me about Salah. Daniel Thomas says, evening James, thoughts on Rudiger to 8 Nori as a free transfer for the upcoming game week? Yeah, absolutely fine, mate. I mean, Wolves have a great stretch following the double game week. Obviously it's West Ham away in 27, but you can bench a player like Eight Nori if you want to. Great stretch of fixtures from game week 28 through to game week 34 basically, and I reckon they could end up with a great double game week in game week 33 actually, if they're not in the FA Cup semi-finals. Eight Nori is the sort of player that's very much on my radar at the moment. He may well be that he's kind of top of the list, possibly to actually come in for me in game week 26 itself. So yeah, happy with that. The Chelsea players you've got, I think that it's move on. It looks very unlikely at this stage that they'll play in game week 25. I still think there is a very, very small possibility that they may play Arsenal in that game week. Even if they did, it's going to be a single game week for both fixtures. I think you move it on knowing that it's Palace away 26, blank 27. I think they may immediately return to a double game week, possibly in game week 28, and it will be steamed back into Chelsea at that point. But yeah, I'd move it on, mate. Yep, that's absolutely fine. Avtanch says, hi James, how do you think Hodgson affects Watford, particularly on the FPL potential of their forwards? Cheers. So this is the thing. Everyone can obviously be very critical of the decision to have the Watford players, and many of us will probably be sitting there with at least one of the two forwards at the moment. Reality is, they've been performing roughly like a mid-table side offensively, just basically like the worst team in the league defensively. And one of Roy Hodgson's strengths is knowing how to organise a team. They will definitely be better defensively, although it may well take some time. What's the impact on them offensively? Very, very difficult to say. Very difficult to say. I imagine in some of the tougher fixtures, you'll see something that resembles something more like a 4-5-1, which potentially in the longer term is bad news for players like Dennis, for example. But it depends who Hodgson wants to use as a central forward. They've got a number of options in there, don't they? It's not just King Dennis. There's João Pedro. There's Cucho Hernandez. You've got Ismail Assar, who's obviously has been playing for Senegal. He's back and available now. Obviously, as of next week after the final. I'm not sure if he'll be available for the West Ham's Tuesday, so he definitely won't be available at West Ham. But he'll be back available from game week 25. That potentially puts a little bit of doubt on Dennis. So next couple of games really critical to get some information if you're planning on holding them for the game week 26 double. It might be by the time that it drops that Dennis isn't in the Watford team, for example. It's a possibility. Dion Chung says, would you start Dele over DCL this week? Not with that fixture away to Newcastle. No, I wouldn't. I'd go with the forward, but I think that's going to be very dependent on Frank Lampard's press conference following the weekend. The good news is, because Everton play on Tuesday against Newcastle, you're highly likely to get the information on Monday whether Calvert-Lewin is fit or available. As I said, that's probably going to influence my decision as well. Darko Tarandek says, hi James, thoughts about keeping Duffy for the double game week? Hold or move on to someone else from Brighton? Let's move on, mate. Cut your losses. I would arguably leave it this week in case something happened to Webster or Dunk, but the reality is Duffy's been getting left out of the team primarily for Burn, but obviously Burn's now gone to Newcastle. But I think Brighton have been happy to release that because obviously Lewis Dunk is available. I would expect Dunk to play at Tottenham in the FA Cup tomorrow evening. So if it's back four, it's going to be Dunk and Webster as first choice. If it's a back three, I would imagine the first choice back three will be Dunk, Webster and Veltman. So I would move Duffy on. I'd arguably, if you can, leave it a week just in case you're lucky enough that either Dunk or Webster were to pick up an injury, in which case you might well have him. Otherwise, can't see him playing. James98 says, hi mate, who would you drop from Rafinha, KDB, Bowen, Martinelli or Jota to get Fernandes in game week 25? Plan to get Salah in game week 26. That's not an easy one to call at all. You've got Rafinha's got great fixture in 25, Everton away, then double, then a stretch of fixtures which are quite appealing. So I think Rafinha's the sort of player he's gonna pass me by, unfortunately, but I wouldn't want to get rid. KDB you're not going to want to get rid of with Norwich away. They also have good fixtures which shouldn't necessarily be overlooked. But I'm guessing you're probably going to go KDB to Salah in 26, or you're going Fernandes then to Salah might be your plan. Jared Bowen, form is incredible. Great single fixture in 26, Newcastle away, Leicester away in 25. Shouldn't be overlooked. And obviously Martinelli will have his own double in game week 26. So you wouldn't want to move that on. It possibly depends a little bit on your strategy. I guess if you're going to triple captain Mo in 26, how much of a headache is it for you to have Martinelli in 25 and 27? It depends what other players you've got. I've got Kieran Tierney, for example. Me having Tierney in 25 and 27 is no problem for me, as far as I'm concerned. I've currently got 2 Liverpool and 1 Arsenal. It'll obviously be 3 Liverpool and 1 Arsenal going in 27. It might be 2 Arsenal. And I might decide to take a couple of hits to smash it out. By the way, that Chelsea fixture in 28, I think if it drops, Arsenal's the most likely opponent. So Arsenal, ironically, could be blank, double, blank, double. And I think if that's announced, suddenly that's going to make people want to steam into Arsenal for 26 and free hit 27. And I'm not discounting it as a possibility for myself as well, because it does mean I wouldn't have to obviously sell any Liverpool players who I'd probably want back quite quickly in any case anyway. Which one would you get rid of from that? Personally, unless you're moving to Robertson, I don't see you getting rid of Jota. I think KDB. I think KDB, you can obviously do a lot with the money as well, improve other areas of your squad. So very reluctantly with the fixtures, KDB, unless you really think Bowen's kind of form is going to come to a close, in which case Jared Bowen. But I have no thoughts to move Jared Bowen on at the moment, personally. Good question. That's a tough one. James 98, it's also added, or would you just move Antonio to Ronaldo for game week 25? Sorry for the two-part question. Yeah, I'd just do that. Wish I'd read the second question for the first question. Yeah, so I think I'd rather probably have Fernandes rather than Ronaldo, personally, for game week 25. But the status of my squad at the moment dictates that a move of Calvert-Lewin to Ronaldo looks a far better play than moving any of my midfielders. So there you go, James. Wish I'd read them both together. Sam Holden says, thanks about thinking about streets won't forget players. That Dimitri Payet season was actually unreal. What Tottenham player had that type of season or time at the club? Not Musa, you mean Dembele, I presume, rather than Sissoko. Van der Vaart. Well, Van der Vaart had a great 2 years, really, at Tottenham. So, what was Payet at West Ham? 18 months, really, I want to say. And a great 18 months. Or was it 2 years? Was it 2.5 years? I remember he left, obviously, in the January window. The streets won't forget. I mean, Tottenham, Klinsmann, maybe. Berbatov was only 2 years. So maybe Berbatov, if we're talking over a 2-year period, is the sort of name you'd put in there. Berbatov never turned up for Tottenham the last 3 months after we won the League Cup. So he was only about 20 months, really, in terms of his quality on the pitch, and actually started quite slow. So let's say Berbatov, I think. Sensational he was for Tottenham. George Nibbs, his thoughts on Alonso and King out for Dean and Edouard. I don't mind that at all. Dean over Alonso makes complete sense at the moment. Edouard had suddenly fallen really interestingly. He have many Palace assets, because if you even remove the Chelsea home fixture in 26, which is the first part of their double, the next 5 game weeks for Palace include Norwich, Brentford, Watford, Burnley. Then Wolves is the 5th. Let's say the next 4 game weeks in that case then. So you've got 4 great fixtures in the next 4 game weeks. Chelsea you can use as a little bit of an added bonus. I think if Palace is right for people, I don't mind. Tyreek Mitchell defensively is another kind of budget one. I think it's worth considering. Absolutely nailed every single game at the moment. Edouard, I really like. I'm not going to put anybody off. I'd just be consciously aware at the moment that Eze's coming back to fitness. You've got Zaha to come back from AFCON, and Mateta is very much involved in the setup at the moment. So there's no guarantee. You've got Elise and Ayew on the right-hand side as well. And Eze is obviously returning, if I didn't mention him. There are multiple options now from Palace. That's all I'd say in terms of kind of if you're looking for guaranteed starter. I'm not sure he's guaranteed. I'm pretty sure in Palace's first 11 he's the central striker, and it would be ideal to see him go and play that position, really, with sort of Elise on the right and Zaha on the left. You get Eze and Gallagher supporting that. Suddenly Palace look like a really exciting team. So I don't mind it. I don't have a problem with Edouard. All I'd say is the question that everyone, I see the correspondents get all the time is he nailed? I don't think Odsonne Edouard is nailed. That's all I'd say about that. But definitely part of the first choice team. George Nibbs says, thoughts, that's what I've just done. Ross Johnson, how did you and Suj meet? Oh, wow. How many times do we get this? Do you know what? I get pained by this question because we answer it so much. But then it reminds me, hey, listen, James, not everybody's listened to you for 5 years. Me and Suj met through work. I worked for his packaging company. I won the FPL mini league. He said, do you want to do a podcast? I said, yeah, let's do that. We did it. And then he said, do you want to do another one next week? And I said, yeah, cool. And then here we are 4.5 years later doing 10 podcasts a week. That's it. It's not a thrilling story, I'm afraid. Alistair Coper says, hey mate, can you give a quick update on what you think will happen in 26-31 with double game weeks? I know you did your chip pod, but figured it might have changed now with a big double game week 26 now. I can, yes, but the information this weekend in terms of the FA Cup results is absolutely crucial. So again, to repeat, suddenly you're sitting there, someone messaged me up there, Bernardo Silva's going to drop in price, what should I do? Right now, absolutely nothing. Because the results over the weekend, if suddenly one of the big teams unexpectedly loses in the cup, let's just say Chelsea lose to Plymouth could completely change the game. And we know that's extremely unlikely. But the one that could really affect the game is Leicester at Nottingham Forest on Sunday. So, as it stands, after match week 27 is the midweek of the FA Cup 5th round. Now, I think, as we've seen with Burnley-Watford being played on FA Cup 4th round weekend tomorrow, it would make sense for the non-televised, possibly televised in the Leeds-Aston Villa-Amazon case, although I don't think it works in terms of it going on the Thursday night. I'm fairly certain that it doesn't. I'm just going to have a check on my planner what day of the week those two teams play afterwards. So Leeds play on the Saturday, Aston Villa also play on the Saturday, so that's probably unlikely to work. I doubt Amazon are going to want the game on the Wednesday night clashing with FA Cup 5th round. It can't be on a Tuesday either because Leeds play Manchester United on the Sunday beforehand. So Villa Leeds probably unlikely to go into that midweek as it stands, although in theory it can. The one that can obviously go in there as an alternative as it stands is Burnley against Aston Villa. Could Burnley suddenly have back-to-back doubles? Well, the answer to your question is yes. But the one team and that obviously would be a double for Villa, the long kind of, where's the Aston Villa double? Well, as it stands, if all the favourites win in the Cup this week, there's every chance that double game week is going to come for Aston Villa in game week 27. However, Leicester losing will change the game quite significantly because the priority to organise fixtures is with Leicester City more than any other club currently. And Leicester obviously also have a game to rearrange against Burnley. Now, should Leicester lose, I think there's a good possibility we get Burnley-Leicester in game week 27. Now, because obviously Leicester don't already play in 27 because it was scheduled to play Chelsea, postponed because of the Carabao Cup final, it would only be a single fixture for Leicester. It would obviously be back-to-back doubles to Burnley. Anyone still interested in Nick Pope? Well, you might be by the time 26 comes around, possibly, if that happens. Leicester could alternatively play Norwich. They could alternatively play Chelsea, if Chelsea lost to Plymouth, for example. And that's what it's really dependent on. If you're asking me for my opinion, as it stands right now, I think Aston Villa and Burnley will go into game week 27. But it's very dependent on the results this weekend. Norwich is another team. If they lose at Wolves, they could play Leicester instead in game week 27. But there's basically any unarranged game where both teams are out of the FA Cup in theory could go into 27. That's all you need to think about. So let's just say hypothetically that Tottenham lost this week to Brighton, which it could do. In theory, Tottenham v Arsenal could go into game week 27. I think that's very unlikely because it's a game Sky have, and I'm pretty sure Sky want to push it back to the end of the season and not clash with the FA Cup 5th round. However, it's worth saying we've obviously had this in the past where a sort of FA Cup semi-final weekend where Premier League and FA Cup semi-finals have clashed. So it's not impossible, and anything that's possible has to be considered as possible. I think if Chelsea are not going to play Arsenal in 25 currently, that's the most likely for them in 28 is to play Arsenal. Would give Arsenal a double of Watford away, Chelsea away. Would give Chelsea a double of Burnley away, Arsenal at home, and it's a start of a great stretch of fixtures for Chelsea. If Chelsea progress in the FA Cup, I think it's really important that they play that midweek, and I'm pretty confident they will. It also works from a television coverage perspective that fixture can be played in the midweek of 28 on a Thursday night. That's because Chelsea and Arsenal are both scheduled on the Sunday in game week 29, and that's going to be far better accepted across the TV companies, the fact that it would clash with Europa League and Europa Conference League rather than the actual Champions League. So I can see Chelsea-Arsenal going into game week 28. Worth saying, however, Chelsea is scheduled to play Norwich in game week 30, and it's not impossible that fixture could be brought forward. However, it would only be around about a week's notice, subject to the results in the FA Cup 5th round, i.e. if at least one of those two teams made the FA Cup quarter-final. And we know the Premier League don't think about fans quite so much in their schedule arrangement, but right now it would make sense for Chelsea and Arsenal to go into game week 28 if, it's not scheduled into 25. I think there's likely to be fixtures in 29 as well. Liverpool could go into that week. So the Arsenal-Liverpool fixture possibly could go into game week 29. Currently, I've got it penciled in on my projected fixtures that Burnley and Everton and Brighton and Tottenham are the two fixtures I think could go into game week 29. But it is all subject to the FA Cup results. And if you ask me on Monday, you might get a very different answer. But hopefully that should give you some summary. I think Chelsea highly likely to double in 28, most likely against Arsenal. Currently, Villa-Burnley the most likely fixture to go into 27. Steve Jones says, "Hi James, thoughts for Sky about starting with Ronaldo over Salah, gambling on Salah rest versus Leicester, captain Ronaldo versus Southampton on the Sat, effectively then making the transfer on Sunday for a 3 for 0. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I presume you're not going to captain Ronaldo on the Tuesday evening. The good news is you obviously see if he plays against Southampton on the Saturday. I would say to you, Steve, that if for any reason João Cancelo doesn't play against Brentford, you'd probably rather captain Cancelo against Norwich rather than Salah on that particular Sky Fantasy Football single game day. Yeah, it's the sort of move that I've considered myself. I'll tell you that as it stands, I'm going to start with Salah and Ronaldo. My outlook on salaries, he's definitely a player that I want. Do I want to waste the transfer on getting him in? In the case of Ronaldo, what are you then doing for, if you sell him, what are you doing for Manchester United versus Brighton single game day? You captain De Gea instead? If that's the case, why not just go De Gea instead for the Southampton game? What are you doing for the Sunday fixture when Manchester United play Leeds? Then there's obviously Watford at home on the Saturday in match week 27 as well. So I would look at alternatives to that stay, personally. Nutkins says, for double game week 26, apart from the Liverpool guys, which 3 other double game week players are best? And do you reckon 7 double game weekers is enough? Again, this is an old one. I think with game week 26, right, let's look at this. Let's be realistic about this. Single game week fixtures. Villa at home to Watford, great fixture. Brighton at home to Burnley, great fixture. Southampton at home to Everton, if you've got Breuer, for example, great fixture. West Ham at home to Newcastle, great fixture. Bowen, etc. United at Leeds, good fixture. City at home to Tottenham, good fixture. So there's 5 or 6 teams in 26 who have single game week fixtures, and they're brilliant fixtures. Brilliant fixtures. You never consider benching. If you've got assets from them games, the best assets ideally, people like Dele, yeah, fine, take it or leave it. But the best assets ideally, you wouldn't be benching. I think for a few people, he's going to have landed. One of our patrons, so I think it was FPL Cricketer, was posting like how his game week 26 bench would look. They're all single game week players, and you'd look at it and go, wow, it's like bench boost. It was something like Laporte at home to Tottenham, Antonio at home to Newcastle, I think it was Breuer at home to Everton, and a keeper with a good fixture as well. It might have been Sanchez or De Gea, I can't remember. And you go, shit, only single game, but they're so good, you'd arguably bench boost with that. So for game week 26, the I must have X amount of doubles, I mean, there's like people sitting there going, I've got to force in a Tottenham player. Really? The first game's Man City away. So effective, really, you're adding 2 points onto whatever you think the Tottenham player's getting against Burnley. That's the reality. So it's not great. If you ask me that, who's got the better fixtures that week, City themselves or Tottenham? City will beat Tottenham, fairly certain of that. Tottenham will then got Burnley away, City away. Just not a lot in it. Wouldn't thump in to be desperate to get the double game week player, for example. So 26, everyone's going to have a strong team. Everyone's going to have a strong team, almost no matter what. I don't think there are a set amount of right doublers to say, yeah, that's brilliant. For myself, as it stands, I'm likely to have Tierney from Arsenal, 3 Liverpool players, which is almost definitely for me going to be Trent, Jota, Salah. I'm going to have the 3 Watford, Foster, Dennis, King. That puts me on 7. I'm going to have, who else have I got? No Burnley, no Palace, probably no Leeds. Wolves, I might add 1, like 8 Nori or something, for example. I'm probably not going to have any Tottenham myself. So I'm going to have 7 or 8. And I'm probably going to be sitting there with like Bowen against Newcastle, Cancelo against Tottenham. And I think there's one other, or United player. I might be sitting there with still Ronaldo. Because if I don't free hit in 27, I think Ronaldo's probably the best captaincy at home to Watford in 27. So I'd probably be sitting there with Ronaldo at Leeds. So, I mean, if that's what I've got, single game week fixtures, great, it's fine. I don't think there's a set amount of right and wrong. Alex Ball says, morning from New Zealand, James. I'm toying with free hit 27, wildcard 28. My big concern is only having one free hit moving through forward. Do you think it would be manageable? Cheers, fella. Yes, it's manageable. It's manageable. You would almost definitely use the other one in free hit 30. All I'd ask you to say, Alex, from that perspective is, if you're free hitting in 27 and you're free hitting in 30, why can you not just manage for 28 and 29 and then look at wildcarding later? That's all I'd say, if that's the way you're intending to go. I think a lot of it is to do with people be sitting there with, say, 3 Manchester United, and then they've got Manchester City away. Okay, yeah, it's not great. Liverpool's fixtures, West Ham at home, Brighton away, not spectacular, but you're still going to want the Liverpool assets. The chances are that you can just move. I think it'll even be worth hits. Say you're sitting there, let's just say hypothetically, you're sitting there with De Gea. Let's say you're sitting there with what I've got. De Gea, Dele, Ronaldo. Well, you could bench De Gea if you really don't want to play him at Man City, but the chances are he'll still get a 3 or 4 pointer at Man City. Ronaldo you can bin. It's the right time to bin. Bin him for a hit. It's the right thing to do. And the defensive player, you can move that to Chelsea. And that's probably where you want to go. Now, that's not quite straightforward if you're sitting there with, say, Dele and want to get to Rudiger. So, but by the time that comes round, you're going to know where you need to play with the money. I don't think Chelsea and Arsenal, if it goes into 28, I mean, in theory, that could be announced sort of next week or so, I think, possibly. Assuming it doesn't go into 25, which, again, it's been left quite late now. But because they're 2 London clubs, I still think there's a small possibility. That's what I'd say, Alex. Why can't you just work through 28, 29? I'm not privy to obviously seeing how your team looks, but I see a lot of people talking about wildcard 28, and I think it's the main reason for that is because Manchester United go to Manchester City. Just give that some second thoughts. You can bin these players for hits, and hits are justifiable in so many of these weeks coming up if you're going to be buying them for doublers, for example. In the case that you sold Ronaldo, I mean, that answers where your money for Dele to Rudiger or Reece James, for example, comes from, right? Chances are you're not going Ronaldo to Kane. I mean, you could do. Kane's got a good fixture at home to Everton, but it's more likely that you're going to move it down to someone who's got an upcoming double, perhaps in 29, that you might know of by that stage. So I'd just give that some second thought about the wildcard 28. If you're free hitting 27 and you're free hitting 30, what's so bad about 28 and 29 that you can't manage through? That's the word I'd ask. And the circumstance is going to be different for everybody. Andreas says, Laporte, Van Dijk or Dean until game week 29. Who is the best option? If it was me personally, I'd be buying Luca Dean. Because I think the fixtures are really good. West Ham away in 29 looks the toughest. Brighton away in 27 is obviously not easy, but as covered, I think there's every chance that'll be a double game week. Leeds, Newcastle, Watford, Southampton, the other fixtures. So I think live a little, go with Luca Dean. Laporte is liable to a little bit of rotation. I think now the Champions League's restarting, but I do very much think he's first choice. Van Dijk would not be my preference as a third Liverpool asset. I think Robertson, Trent, Salah, I'd still Jota as it stands over Van Dijk in my opinion. So I'd go with Luca Dean as it stands. And remember as well, if you're not free hitting in game week 30, Luca Dean will definitely play in game week 30 as long as he himself is fit, because as it stands, Villa and Arsenal is the only game definitely that will take place in game week 30. Horde Arfay says, people seem to be ignoring Burnley even though their double is not bad and they have other outstanding. Getting them, Vegel's probably in maybe 25. Is it bad? Can you talk on that? So, yeah, as said, that it might be that it lands that way for you, for example. So, 24 is United, 25 is Liverpool. Is that when you want to buy it? 25 home to Liverpool when you've got Neil Maupay's got a double, for example. I think this is why Burnley are getting overlooked. And when 26 comes around, because there's 7 other teams with doubles, yeah, look, it's not terrible. Brighton away, Tottenham at home, but it's not great either. 27, their double, if they played in that week, would be Crystal Palace away and whatever the other fixture is. As said, at the most likely it's Aston Villa away. So Palace away, Villa away. Does it overly appeal? Now listen, if a team's got back-to-back doubles, that in itself, almost irrespective of fixtures, should appeal. Because at worst case, even if Vegel's blanks twice, he's almost definitely first choice there. So it's 8 points, isn't it? and it's not the worst return. One attacking return in there, and he's getting you over 10 for across the 2 game weeks. So of course, that should be considered. But I mean, that buying Weghorst when they've got Liverpool in 25 just doesn't feel right. Why wouldn't you? I'd rather roll the transfer and give myself more options going into 26. Plus, people don't know his capability yet. I'd be very conscious if he has a mad one tomorrow against Watford, that it's Watford tomorrow, and then the fixtures are stiffen up. Pope is the best asset because he can, if they keep a clean sheet in any game, he can obviously hoover up the save points and the bonus as well. It will always make him interesting. The others, there's no interest in anything else there at the moment. Ross Johnson says, is Sud your boss and does he pay you? Or is it a joint venture? Great pod, by the way, mate. Mentioned you before on Twitter in my top 3 go-to pods. Much appreciated, Ross. Thank you for that. Sud is my boss, yeah. Although what we do is very much a joint venture, if you will. Essentially, yes, he pays my wages, if that's what you want to know. But in terms of the direction of Planet FPL, it is not done on Suj tells me what to do. Everything is done. If anything, I'm more of the decision maker on the process, and he lets me get on with it. Tom Glover says, do you think there will be better options for free hit than Game Week 27 if you can field a full 11 in 27? I have both left. So as I said, if Arsenal do end up with a double in 28, that's going to make people want to steam into Arsenal for 26. Then people possibly sitting there with 6 Liverpool, 6 Arsenal. If you've got any Chelsea, I can't believe you will do at that stage, or any Leicester, then there's a fair chance you're going to... And obviously there's other teams, let's say Villa double as well, then that's going to really add to the appeal in terms of free hit in 27. So I won't rule it out personally, and I know people will have Villa assets, but it will obviously enable you to get free, and the second fixture of the double would highly likely be Burnley at home, so it would very much appeal. Then you get all them assets back, you get the free Liverpool assets back, you get the free Arsenal assets back for their double and stuff. So will there be better opportunities? It's very, very difficult to say. I think it might be that an Arsenal 28 double will possibly be what swings it for myself. 33 is likely to be a combination of majority doubles, some single fixtures, and some blankers. A couple of teams are likely to blank in 33. So 33 is the other alternative. Now, if you ask me what's 33 going to look like, that's like how long's a piece of string at the moment, because that's the same game week as the FA Cup semi-finals. So I can't even really begin to answer what 33 might look like for you until after game week 27. But game week 33 could be a really aggressive play for the free hit. Obviously, if you've used your bench boost, game week 36 as well. There is the possibility, if the likes of Chelsea and Leicester progress in Europe and progress in the FA Cup, that treble game weeks at the end are not impossible. And if you think about it, we're all probably going to be using the triple captaincy in the near future. Bench boost is probably going to get used before that as well. It could be that a very, very late free hit in game week 37 could be a really cute move even. But yeah, I think there's a chance it's going to land in the laps for many people to free hit in game week 27. I may be one of them. Like I said, I think if Arsenal goes into 28, that might be what really influences the decision for me as well to go, yep, actually that's what I'm going with. Adam English says 5 subs made permanent from the IFAB next month. Yeah, I did just see that before I come onto stream. I think it will be up to each governing body still to probably make the decision. But if IFAB's passed it off, then yeah, 5 subs is what we're likely to get. Can't say I'm thrilled about it, to be honest. I don't suppose any fantasy football manager is going to be thrilled about it. I'm just not keen anyway on 5 subs. Wesam A says, hi James, please without bias. Well, I am obviously going to do it with bias, aren't I? Because I can't help how I am emotionally. For the next 4 weeks, which is better? Bruno then Son or Ronaldo then Kane? Which combo is better? Thanks. It's not as straightforward as that, is it? Because it's more likely that a path for me would be, say, maybe Ronaldo then Kane, because of the setup of my team currently. Is possibly the more likely. But I'd rather have Son. I don't think Ronaldo or Kane are justifiable at their value, bottom line. So therefore I'm going to say Bruno to Son. Yeah, I'm more likely to take the other path because of the current setup of my team. Angus McPhail says, thoughts on Steve Bruce at West Brom? Look, he's got a great historical record, Angus, of getting teams out of the Championship. They're still in the mix. They've been underperforming for quite a while. He will give them a realistic shot of going up, most likely through the playoffs rather than automatic promotion at the moment. I'm surprised that it's an 18-month contract, and I'd be surprised if he makes it through 18 months. Even if he gets them promoted, they'll probably sack him in December. They have very much a sacking culture at West Bromwich Albion. It's not too dissimilar to what goes on at Watford. So I'd be very surprised if he sees out the 18 months. But in the media, he knows that league very well. I want to say he's the manager who's been promoted the most from the Championship, I think. So from that perspective, it's a no risk in terms of the remainder of this season to give him a good opportunity of hitting the ground running. FPL Leo says, evening James, who would you sell out of Dennis or King considering Sarr is back? Well, as I said earlier, it possibly makes Dennis the concerning one, doesn't it? Possibly. I wouldn't rush to sell either as covered, and I think the information from the Gameweek 25 fixture against Brighton could be what's all important and crucial to give us the final answer, because Sarr's obviously not going to play at West Ham on Tuesday. So it's not till 25, and we may not even get the information then. Could they take their time with Ismaila Sarr rather than rushing back? That's a possibility as well. So it might be we don't have that answer going into game week 26. I would have thought Josh King is the more likely to stay in the team of the two. But I'd be guessing. I think the beauty with King is, and Dennis is multifunctional as well, in fairness, but I think King can play. He can play as a 10 as well, I'd say. If they decide to go with, say, more of a 4-2-3-1, he could be used in that role, which means he could play in any of 4 forward positions, whereas Dennis is more limited to... He can play on the left. I don't like him there particularly. 2.5, let's say. So with that alone, I think that makes King a little bit safer, but not a lot in it, mate. Andreas says, which Spurs defender is going to get most points from now till the end of the season? Region. But he's going to drive you insane. He's going to drive you insane. I'll give you an example. Game week 26, the double. City away on the Saturday. Burnley away on the Wednesday night. Then Leeds away Saturday lunchtime. Regulon play Burnley and Leeds. Doubtful. So if you have him for 26, you might just have him for Manchester City away. And I'll repeat it as I've said it several times over. The work the wing-backs have to get through at Tottenham means that they are going to be liable to injury, fatigue, and obviously importantly, even if not, rotation, because of the sheer volume of work they have to do. You have to understand it on a basic principle like this, and I won't go into too much detail. In a 3-5-2, they have to play as fullbacks without the ball. They have to play as wingers with it. It's basically a 5-3-2 that converts to a 4-2-4. And in that position, Region has to play left back and left wing. It's hard work, and that's the problem. But he's the one that has the scope for the biggest upside. So Region in terms of now till the end of the season. Ali Bismo says, hello James, should I go for a Spurs or Arsenal defender for game week 26, trying to avoid free hit 27, but Arsenal with better doubles? I mean, the best defensive asset between the two teams by an absolute mile is Kieran Tierney. By a mile. So there's your answer. If you don't have none, I would go and buy Kieran Tierney. Secret Yellow says, hi James, where do you see Davis in the pecking order with Romero returning from injury? I see it not affecting him too much. Davinson Sanchez is a little bit uncomfortable as a left-sided centre-back. Davis does provide these underlapping runs from the left side of the centre-back. I would see him being first choice. Tottenham have identified they couldn't get anyone they wanted in that position in January, so we're going to leave it till the summer. So Ben Davis, I would expect from here on in to play the majority of games. Again, possible rotation. But I would expect Romero to come in for Davinson Sanchez, as it would stand with obviously Dyer playing in between Romero and Davis. That's the most likely. The one thing that obviously Sanchez has in his locker, and this might be dependent on certain individual fixtures, he has more recovery pace than the others. None of the other three are particularly quick, whereas Sanchez does have the recovery pace. Vesemay says, Cancelo or Bowen captain this week? As it stands, I'm bust on Bowen. As it stands. I'm not sure if I'm going to buy Salah this week or not. I really, really don't know. If they win, almost definitely not. If they lose, I might. But it would cost me a -4 if I go down that route. It could be that it opens up for me rather than Ronaldo is to move Calvert-Lewin if I want to someone nearer his value. Perhaps Ollie Watkins. I'll just go, look, this is a good run of fixtures. And actually move in Fernandes for Bernardo Silva for 24-25, and then it's almost a straight swap for Salah in 26. It might be that I go down that route, though. As I said, I think I'm more likely to be forced into the Ronaldo move at the moment. But at the moment, I have the captaincy bust on Jared Bowen for game week 24. FPL telling Josh, hey James, if using wildcard this week, do you see many issues later in the season? I have both free hits, but planning the bench boost is the only issue I can think of. So, you might have heard me say on either Monday's podcast or Tuesday's podcast that I thought as many as 18 teams could double in game week 36. That was in reference to a question we had. And that it could even land that you wouldn't even need to set up for the bench boost in game week 36. For example, if there's only 2 teams, don't have a double. However, these rearranged fixtures, the 4 fixtures, that alone has led me to revise that I anticipate game week 36 will have 12 teams doubling. And it could even be that game week 33 is bigger than 36. There is a small possibility of that. So in terms of setting up, tricky. So that's the problem of not having the wild card. But obviously you can map it out in your mind. The closer we get, the more you can be realistic about what's likely and what's not likely. You can know for certain, in the case of, say, if Leicester City get knocked out in the FA Cup quarterfinals and are still in Europe, they are a certainty to double in game week 33 and 36. You can start mapping those sort of things in your mind. That's obviously the one issue you'll have of using it. But don't put all your eggs into the wild card for the bench boost. If your team is a mess, wild card. My team, despite having 3 Watford players in it, is, as far as I'm concerned, not a mess. I looked at what I would do if I wildcarded this week. Earlier in the week, honestly, I would only make 7 changes. I will look at it again on Monday following the FA Cup results just to double check that it's not something I want to do. If I'm suddenly looking at it and going, shit, I'd make 11, 12 changes, I'll pull it. It's very unlikely to be in that position, by the way. But yeah, don't hold the wild card just for the sake of the bench boost. The chances are that 36 is going to at least be big enough that you'll be able to get in a strong position. A man Khan says, hi James, I just watched a tour of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and it's beautiful. Though my question is unrelated, should I sell both Foden and Gundogan after Norwich? Thank you. Gundogan, I'd arguably just get rid of now. I'd recommend listening to yesterday's Clash of the Correspondents, where our City correspondent Johnny Pringle, FPL Pringle, came on the show. Gundogan seems to be the fall guy at the moment. That's the exact quote that Johnny used in reference to him. Foden is certainly easier to move on after that moment. But remember, they still have good single game week fixtures. Tottenham at home is a good fixture for Manchester City. I'm certain of it. Everton away afterwards in 27. United at home in 28. It's fine. Palace away 29. Burnley in 31. Presumably they'll blank in 30. They're scheduled Brighton at home. It's still good fixtures. Don't overlook that. Gundogan, though, in honesty, I'd be looking to move that on now, mate. And thank you for your comments on the stadium. Go and do a proper tour. Colin Bugler says, what game do you think Salah will be back by? He's played 3 120-minute games recently, and we've still got the final, and most of his teammates have had a rest. 26 for me. Could be. Could be that he plays Thursday. I wouldn't rule it out. Listen to what Jurgen Klopp said today. It depends how they feel when they come back. Look, think of it like this. He might come back, and what they do at Liverpool, and I know this, they have a traffic light system. So we've said this, and this has happened a number of times where, say, I think Salah and Mane played in Milan, didn't they, in the Champions League? And we were like, what are you doing? You've won the group. They have a traffic light system where basically they rate the players on green, orange, red. And that's how it works. And that's done outside of Klopp's given the information by all these people in the background, and they make the decision. And they'll say, if they say to him, say Liverpool are going to go and play Man City, honestly, and they said to Klopp, Salah's red, he wouldn't play him. Honestly, he wouldn't play. If he fell in the red zone where they were concerned that he was going to get injured, he wouldn't pick him. So when they assess Mo Salah on Wednesday, if Liverpool's fitness guys deem Salah to fall into the green, there's no reason why he won't pick him. And that's the honest reality. Now, because of the minutes he's played, he's probably more likely to fall into the orange zone at the moment, where they probably won't take a chance. That would be my instinct. In terms of Burnley in 25 on Sunday, I wouldn't be concerned about that. Mo Salah is not a player who regularly gets injured. As he had a serious injury since he's been at Liverpool. I can't think of him missing more than a week or two. So he's got durability. That's clear. The work he puts into games in terms of his intensity is different to others, where he can, in certain fixtures, let's say, sell through them. And I'm not saying he doesn't put work in, because he absolutely does. So I wouldn't rule it out. Mo Salah playing in 24 is not impossible. Honestly, even if he flies to Egypt, if they win on Sunday, comes back Tuesday, Wednesday, and they assess him on Wednesday, and he's absolutely buzzing out of his mind because he's so happy and feels so confident, Liverpool might decide the best thing to do is put him on the pitch and then just assess him on a game-by-game basis. And that's what Liverpool will do. My instinct is he probably doesn't start as it stands because of what you said. Those 3 back-to-back 120-minute games. You've got another game, and a crucial game coming on Sunday. And to be honest, the chances are that will be 0-0 and go to penalties as well. Nasu says, when latest could we get double game week 36 news, and how many double game weeks could possibly be announced before game week 31? Plans to wildcard in 31, but worried we may not have enough double game week news. Can't guarantee it for you, mate. Can't guarantee it at all. Cannot guarantee it. There's no guarantee you will get any double game week news before the game week 31 deadline. You should do. Cannot guarantee it. Therefore, it could be a very dangerous week to wildcard. So, reality, you let the price changes go. You wait till you've got the information. That's the best thing to do. Cannot guarantee it, because the Premier League couldn't organise a piss up in the brewery, mate. So, there's no guarantee that after the FA Cup quarter-finals, they're going to start bashing things out and going bang, 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 bang. That's what they should do. We should be in a position before game week 31 where they at least announce all the game week 33 midweek fixtures, and then we can use our own intelligence to fill the blanks for 36 ourselves. That's the minimum that should happen. Can I guarantee that will happen to you? No. I can't, because they're useless. Tom Campbell's in, says, afternoon, James. How do you think Dele will be used for Everton? Reckon it works out for him? Cheers, pal. I certainly hope it works out for him, Tom. The only way to use Dele now is as a second striker, as a 10, and to feed off the man around him. And in Dominic Calvert-Lewin, there is a player there who draws opposition players, is a good target in the air, and Dele can make the runs at the right times. What Everton don't have, unlike what he had in his peak at Tottenham, we say Christian Eriksen in the midfield areas in terms of creativity. Eriksen would always look for his runs. And also in the defensive zones, and this is important. Think of the long diagonals that Toby Alderweireld used to play for Dele Alli. The passes that Dyer was playing recently as against Liverpool in December, where Dele kept running inside Trent in the second half. Everton don't have the capability of player to do that. If you do not provide Dele Alli with the in-behind service, waste of time. And I'm not sure Everton have got the players to feed him at the moment. But the only way to use him is off the second balls of Calvert-Lewin. That's how you'll get the best out of him. Now, what that means for Donny van de Beek, I can't tell you. But then Everton's transfer business has been ridiculous for however long. The squad looks better now. Are they going to play Van der Beek and Dele Alli both as kind of 8s? I think you need to play Dele Alli higher. You can certainly play Van der Beek in that role. Although many seem to think that Van der Beek's been brought as a 10. So then I don't see where Dele Alli is going to be used. Does Dele Alli improve Everton if he plays as a midfield player? I would say yes without the ball, not necessarily with it. I hope it works out. I'll be honest, Tom, I'm very sceptical to it. Dylan Farrell says, hi James, what would be your chip strategy if you've used one free hit and only have 3 Liverpool, Ramsdale and King as doublers in game week 26? That includes my planned transfers. Free hit game week 30, mate. That's still the likely answer, but ask me again on Monday, pop me a message in Slack, DM me, and I'll answer it, but the chances are still going to be free hit 30. As it stands, if all the favourites win in the FA Cup, let's just say hypothetically, and we know that won't happen, that would leave us with 4 fixtures in game week 30. Those would be Villa v Arsenal, which we know is definitely going to happen, Burnley against Southampton, Newcastle against Crystal Palace, and Watford against Everton. Now, chances are you're going into that with 4 players maybe or so, if that's how it drops and lands. It's free hit territory, isn't it? Now, Liverpool and Manchester United, people are going to have quite a bit of coverage of, for example. Let's just say Manchester United lost to Middlesbrough tonight and Liverpool lost to Cardiff on Sunday, and we knew that was definitely going to be on. It sounds ridiculous. It's probably a 100-to-1 shot, but you never know in the FA Cup. Let's say that did happen, and we could see Liverpool United was going to go into game week 30. Now that potentially really changes the game, doesn't it, Dylan? Because although it's not a great fixture, you wouldn't fear having the 3 Liverpool players, would you? Then if you drop in another fixture, for example, let's just say Norwich against Chelsea, hypothetically, and then suddenly, because of Chelsea's running game week 28, maybe free hit 30 doesn't become necessary anymore. That's possible. But as it stands, it looks like a bit of a wasteland. But it also still looks like there's fixtures there that you can attack, where, depending on your preference of teams when it gets nearer the time, you can still go in for an all-in strategy and have 12 players from 4 teams if that's how it drops, and it will be interesting. So it's all dependent on that FA Cup, Dylan. But as it stands, and because of the draw, and that's important, the draw for the 5th round is on Sunday morning prior to Liverpool Cardiff. The draw is important as well, right? So let's say Liverpool may not draw each other in the 5th round even. Well, then we know that can't happen in game week 30. So they can't both go out. So the results and the draw of the FA Cup is so critical to what's going to happen next. I'm pretty much blagging all the answers at the moment, because on Monday when we do the podcast, we're going to be able to script this much better for you. Elfin Priest says 1 million, but one nostril is blocked for the rest of your life. Yes or no? Oh, what a question. Thanks, Elfin. Nah, it's not enough. It's not. It's a pain in the arse, isn't it? Walking around sniffing all day long. Imagine for me doing the podcast as well. I probably, if I only had 1 million in the bank, I'd still do the podcast. It's not enough money to secure you for the rest of your life anymore. So I'm gonna say no. Ali Bismo says another one, James. Now currently own Ramsdale and Foster. Should I go for Sanchez to cover the blanks, or just stick to Foster? No, I'd probably stick, particularly as bearing in mind that the possibility we're talking about maybe Arsenal doubling again in 28 as well. It's 1 game week. You could go that way. You could go if it's affordable, you could go Sanchez in 25. You play Ramsdale 26. Then in 27, Brighton got Burnley at home, good fixture. Then possibly Arsenal double again. Even if it's not, they've got Watford away, you'd still probably prefer that. So if you haven't got holes in your team, Sanchez is going to add you a doubler in 25. Consider that as important as well. Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I wouldn't make the transfer this week because presumably, well, that said, oh no, they've got a blank, haven't they? So definitely don't make the transfer this week. Yeah, maybe one to consider the 25. I think if that was me, I'd be tempted. I'd only go down that route if I still had the wild card in hand, though. I'd add to that. Ludwig says, afternoon, James. How important is it to have both Salah and Fernandes for game week 25? Worth getting both from -8, for example, or if not, which is a priority for game week 25? No, you don't have to have both. You don't have to have either of them. You could captain Ronaldo. I might not have either of them. You might captain Ronaldo and he might actually do something for a change. Not necessary. Not necessary. I think in my case, if I don't buy Salah 24, and I'm beginning to lean as though I'm probably not, I'm probably waiting till 26, unless he has a sort of cameo that's really scary against Leicester on Thursday night, because I will captain the doubler in 25, almost definitely. So, nah. It's not essential. You can go against. Honestly, you can bet against any of these players in the next couple of weeks and you either win or lose. None of them are essential. Nasu says, with Romero now back, who do you prefer between Dyer and Sanchez? Dyer, mate. I've answered the question in terms of who's likely to play. If you ask me generally for Tottenham, then yeah, Eric Dyer has been really good this season. To be honest with you, if I had to vote on Tottenham's Player of the Year right now, Eric Dyer would get my vote. Torbjorn says, "Evening James, I have like 8 million in the bank. I have 12.3 million, mate, and don't have Bruno or Salah. That's me as well. I have Ronaldo for what it's worth. Would you bring in either for this game week or roll? Got a pretty decent squad and King plus KWH on bench. Cheers." Who's KWH? Who's KWH? I don't know who KWH is. Anyway, there's no point putting it in the chat because I'm going to have to finish the stream in a sec. I think with the fixtures, you go and buy, personally. Particularly if you're going down the Bruno route. Bruno for Burnley, Bruno for the double, then move it to Salah. That's, rather than roll, I think that's what I'd be doing. Right, I'm going to cover 4 more and then we're going to have to finish it off because the wife's got to disappear out. David Tyner says, "Hi James, what are your thoughts on Zaha? As in for an FPL asset, I'd rather buy Aliso or Edouard, personally. Not worth the value, in my opinion. Probably their best asset, don't get me wrong. But no, it wouldn't be in my thoughts at the moment, Wilfried Zaha." Super Spurs says, "Hi James, do you think the double game week 26 is way overrated?" No, I think it's a great game week. I think it's a great game week because of the single game week fixtures that shouldn't be ignored. So therefore, if you're saying the actual doubles are overrated, then let's have a quick chat about them. So Arsenal, Brentford, Wolves at home. I think that's a great double. 2 home fixtures for Arsenal. I would definitely want a defensive asset. Burnley, Brighton away, Tottenham at home. I can leave that. Palace, and we're going to focus specifically on the double. Chelsea at home, Watford away. It's not brilliant. It might as well just be Watford away as a single fixture. Leeds, United at home, Liverpool away. It's not a great double, but the only Leeds asset we'd consider in any case is Rafinha, if we're being honest at the moment. And I think Rafinha 2 fixtures is still interesting. Liverpool, you basically can't get a better double than that. Norwich and Leeds at home. Tottenham is not a great double. City away, Burnley away. Watford, it's average, but for a double it's okay. Villa away, Palace at home. For Wolves, Leicester at home, Arsenal away is quite a tough double. I would say wouldn't expect those 2 fixtures to be very high scoring, but then I think Wolves' defensive asset absolutely fine, particularly considering their run afterwards as well. So I don't think the doubles are that amazing. I think Arsenal's is very good. Liverpool's is obviously exceptional. There's a couple there I wouldn't. At Burnley, I'm not fussed about. But then if they have the second double 27, as per the guy asking about Weghorst earlier, maybe you just go, fuck it, shit, it's back-to-back doubles. I might want to consider it. Although 3 hitters in 27, you could obviously just 3 hit him in if that's what you wanted to do. So it depends on your interpretation. I tend to think the game week is very good because of the single game week fixtures. I mean, just looking through the fixtures, there's not many fixtures in terms of the singulars that you'd have next to no interest in during the game week. I mean, every fixture holds an interest in game week 26. There is no fixture in game week 26 where you could say, maybe one, Southampton versus Everton. But even then, people sitting there with Breuer or Ward-Prowse, for that example, you can play them in that fixture. There is no fixture in game week 26 which is worthless. And I think that makes it quite an exciting game week. Javier Alcantara says, "Should I do Alonso to Dyer game week 24? Dewsbury Hall to Cornet game week 25 and Backman to Ramsdale game week 26. No free hit 27, but wildcard surely in game week 28. Your thoughts?" Well, I've covered what I've already thought about game week 28 wildcard and recommend obviously revisiting that. Is this just I have to get rid of the Manchester United players? I'm not sure what I'm missing in terms of the fuss of game week 28. Wolves have a great sort of run that physically starts in 28, but they've got a double in 26, so you could argue their run now starts earlier. I'm failing to see what people are particularly, why 28 is so important to people. I'm failing to see it. Still going to have Liverpool assets if you run through 27. We're talking about the possibility of Arsenal doubling again. Yes, Chelsea coming to the great run as well. So there's only Chelsea and Wolves. Wolves, as we said, arguably starts earlier. The game with 28 priority is going to be buying Chelsea players. and selling Manchester United players. Is that really worth the wild card? If Chelsea double as well, just take a couple of hits, get a couple in. I don't see that personally at the moment. Wildcard 28. What the importance is? Are we adding Leeds into that? I'm not sure. I don't. It doesn't appeal to me personally. In terms of your transfers, I'm gonna be honest, mate. With the fixtures coming up, it sounds dull as dishwater, mate. Dyer, Cornet, Ramsdale. That's not really what I want to be using with my transfers at the moment, but it says the guy has 12.3 million in the bank. I have the luxury of making it look a little bit more exciting, I get. There's nothing wrong with buying them players. I mean, Cornet 25 is the same as the Vegas one. It's Liverpool at home. Why are you buying it then? Let it go a week. Roll the transfer. Alonso to Dyer. You need to move Alonso on. If Dyer's a preference you want from Tottenham, fine. I wouldn't be steaming into Tottenham personally. I'd rather, depending on your setup, if you haven't got Kieran Tierney, I'd rather you went that way if it's affordable. I'm going to guess the fact you're asking about Dyer, not Reguilon, probably means it's not affordable. But yeah, listen, people, tweet me. Gameweek 28 wildcard. Why is it such a thing? And we'll end with Super Spurs says Streets won't forget Ginola for me. Of course they won't, mate. It was 3 years. That's why I didn't include him, mate. But yeah, David, certainly iconic at Spurs, will never be forgotten. Alright guys, thanks for that. Sorry to those I didn't get to on the queues. If you just joined, I will spin an audio version of this in the next hour or so. That'll be up on the usual channels, Spotify, iTunes, Apple, whatever these things are. It'll be on all of them in a little bit. Next week's content, as I said, me and Suj's main podcast, Monday. We will cover off the importance from the FA Cup draw and the FA Cup results on what that means, pathing that ahead. Monday's going to be a really important podcast. Tuesday, I don't know what we're going to do yet. But it'll probably be People's Poll. It'll probably go out quite early. Wednesday be Sky Fantasy Football. Thursday's Clash of Correspondence. Next week's Manchester United versus Brighton, ahead of their double in 25 with Is My Cat playing FPL Seagull. There will be another Ask James stream next Friday. It will likely be at the earlier time. It was later today because we've had a few childcare issues today, unfortunately. There is a normal life as well outside fantasy football. Obviously, if you want to support our content, visit www.patreon.com/planetfpl. From intermediate tier, you can unlock an additional 20 podcasts on our Patreon network throughout February. Support the content because you want to support the content, not become a better FPL manager. Although from basic tier, you can get into my planner spreadsheet, and I feel like that's what everybody wants the most at the moment. That'll get you into our Slack community with over 500 Planet FPL patrons now. Other than that, guys, good luck for your Burnley and Watford assets tomorrow. If your team's playing in the FA Cup this weekend, very best of luck. Have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday for the benefit of those on the audio. Cue music, please, man child.